Hello, American Patriots. Douglas Ducote here. This past Wednesday, there was a crash of a World War II B-17 bomber that belonged to the Collins Foundation. It crashed up in Connecticut. There are some things that are circulating around the internet and all social media platforms and, sadly, major news outlets that I would like to try and clear up for future generations to understand that these aircraft are actually safe to fly in. Well, first let's talk about what took place. The Collins Foundation has several different types of World War II aircraft that they refurbish, rebuilt, and they fly them around the country to allow other generations of people to see them and pay a fee to take a flight in them. This particular B-17 was up in Connecticut. It had just taken off with a group of people. They had an engine problem. They declared to turn around immediately and come back and land. Air traffic control gave them the permission. Upon landing, they struck the ILS system at the end of the runway. The aircraft touched down and veered off to the right and then crashed into a building that was a de-icing facility. 7 people lost their lives and 6 others were injured. My thoughts and prayers first go out to all of those that were involved in this, and also to the members of the Collins Foundation, who I look at as my brothers and sisters. They are wonderful men and women doing wonderful things for this country to keep these aircraft up and flying for future generations to see. It's a one-of-a-kind organization, and they do an outstanding job. Now, here's what the problem is. The news media is asking or putting out the question, are these vintage aircraft safe to fly? And in many publications that they've utilized, social media outlets, it's outright just uncalled for. It's misleading, and it's a shame. Let me explain to you something about aircraft. The age of an aircraft does not determine whether or not it is airworthy. That has nothing to do with it. What determines if it's airworthy is the inspections that it must go through. And there are several inspections that take place, and they're all on a time schedule by flight hours. The engines, the airframe, all of this is looked at and inspected every year, several times a year in some cases, by licensed, trained airframe and power plant mechanics. They make the determination if this aircraft is safe to fly or not safe to fly. They make a recommendation to the person that owns the aircraft, and if they do not take the A&P mechanic up on what needs to be changed out, or let's say they don't have the money to do it, then the aircraft is grounded, and the FAA will not let it fly anymore. This aircraft, for all we know at this point in time in the investigation, had all of its inspections and annuals up to date. There's still more to come out with this. That being said, I was very disappointed when I heard the original press conference. Actually, I watched it live with the FAA inspectors on the ground. And one of the questions asked by the news media is the safety of these World War II airplanes. And this was a great opportunity for the inspectors to set the record straight. Only would have took them a minute, and they didn't do that. They left a wide door open for these media outlets to walk through. Look, I'm not a FAA inspector. I'm not a crash scene inspector. But I've spent all of my life, and I'm 57 years old, in aviation. When I was 2 years old was my very first flight. My father took me up in his Cessna 172, and it went from there. I've been flying for years. When I was only 12 years old, sitting in the left seat with my dad, I knew how to take off, land, taxi, communicate with the towers. I had it all down pat. At 15, I soloed for the very first time. I eventually went into the military. I became a crew chief on the Huey helicopter, on the CH-47. I eventually became a flight engineer. I also did a 3-year stint in the Air National Guard where I was a crew chief on the H-860G helicopter. So for years, I've worked in and around maintenance of aircraft and flying on these aircraft. So I know exactly how the inspection system works. And I have many friends that are flying to this day, and many friends that are A&P mechanics. So by the news media putting out there, asking the question and leaving it open-ended, is it safe to fly in a World War II aircraft, or as they say in some of them, a vintage aircraft? Shame on you for doing that. Because those that do not know will automatically think, well, wait a minute, why are we flying on, why would you allow somebody to pay a fee to go fly on something that was built in the 1940s? Well, because it's as safe as any other aircraft. If it is maintained and inspected according to FAA rules and regulations, a 1942 aircraft is just as safe as one that just rolled off the assembly line in 2019. The age has nothing to do with it. The airworthiness, again, is determined by an A&P mechanic. So, for those of you that love to go to air shows and would like to one day be able to afford, if you could, to fly on one of the Collins Foundation aircraft, I say go for it. I will continue to do so. I will continue to be a part of this wonderful organization that brings to you the history of aviation. I recently had the opportunity to do a photo shoot with several of the Collins Foundation aircraft. For those of you who don't know, I also do photography. You can go on Facebook and you can look under Sky Dragon Photography. That's me. Yes, I'm a jack of all trades. And you'll be able to find a photo shoot I did of the actual B-17 that we're talking about here that crashed. I also did their B-24 bomber and their P-51. It's a sad day in aviation anytime we lose aviators and passengers. And again, my thoughts and prayers to all those involved. But don't let the news media, once again with their fake news, lead you to believe something that is just not true. These aircraft are safe and can continue to be flying for years and years to come. Sadly, not this one B-17, because it was totally destroyed. But the other aircraft that the Collins Foundations have are completely safe to fly on. Thank you. God bless you. Please say a prayer for those that lost their lives and those that are still recovering. Also, please pray for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, first responders, their families, our Blue and Gold Star families, our president, and our country. I'm Douglas Ducote. Hope you all have a wonderful and blessed day.